Hello everybody, this is Desmond2520. I know it's been a little bit. Now before anything else, I will be uploading my Cold War and my two Cold War videos I already had planned soon enough, but today we're going to be talking about the whole Battlefield thing that's happened recently, because if you guys don't know, just today, the Battlefield reveal trailer, essentially the first reveal, we always get the cinematic one, was released. And we also have some stuff from people like Jack Frags, who had a little bit of an interview with the people working there. So I'm going to be going over the information I got from that, and I'm going to be going over my opinion of the reveal, which will be the first thing I get into. So, on my opinion of the reveal so far, we don't have gameplay yet, so I can't say anything super important to the gameplay, at least until we get into the interview. But as for my first impressions, I'm hyped. It's definitely a very good reveal, though I will say it does look a bit weird, but that's because, you know, we haven't had a Battlefield that actually looks, I said, the only game that's aesthetically similar to it is 4, and 4, which I'm playing in the background, obviously does not have the, you know, this game was like, what, 2014, something like that? Like, this game is almost 8 years old now. So, there's a lot of difference in technology there, so it's going to look a lot different. Now, on to the other opinions. These map sizes are huge. I'm going to like it. And once I get into the other stuff, which I'm going to get into super shortly, it'll explain a lot more why I'm hyped, but more in the context of what I saw with what I've been told. I'm thoroughly going to enjoy this game. So, let's get into the information that we know of, at least what we've been told. Mind you, not all of this is, like, super fleshed out yet, so some of it is close to being fleshed out, but it's not like we won't know until we have it type deal. So, let's get right into it. So, for the easy stuff, we will have 128 versus 128 is not a thing, as some leakers suggested. It is 128 total per player, so basically we have 128 players in the server is max, 64v64. I don't know why someone said 128 versus 128 was a thing that was going to happen. But yeah, it's 64v64 for next gen. The old gen will have a version of the game, sort of like how Battlefield 4 did. Instead, it's going to be more traditional 64v64, or not 64v64. 64 players total. I actually don't even think that's bad, honestly. PS4 and Xbox One players aren't getting that bad of a deal out of it. Sure, you guys are saying, oh, well, that's half the player base. Well, if y'all remember how PS3 went, and Xbox 360, it was 12v12, which is 24, which means that one whole game was less than half of a team. So this is a lot better being half than not even half of one team like it used to be. As for the game modes we have so far, the only ones we have confirmed information on is All Out Warfare. This is essentially the main big modes. This encompasses Breakthrough and Conquest, in which Conquest has a few changes to it from what I've seen. Essentially, to hold a location, you must capture different points within it, so essentially, when I get into the maps, I'll explain this deeper, or at least I'll show what I mean by it, but, essentially, you need to capture multiple points within an area to hold an area for Conquest now, and that's the really big difference, in terms of the actual, like, how the mode works. Now, on to soldier stuff and general gameplay. Since we had the other two modes, we don't have confirmed what they mean yet or what they do. And obviously new modes may be coming out. General gameplay, we are confirmed Battle Pass type deal. And, you know, live service, whatever, as long as they keep it close to, like, Modern Warfare, I could care less. You know, that you can get everything free to play fairly easily, but not, like, overly annoying. AI has been added into the game, so there will be the ability to play with bots, and yes, progression will be enabled, so that means you can, if you're really lazy, farm bots all day, although from what I've heard, from what we know, we don't know what they're going to be. Obviously tailored for newer players, but they're not going to be like, I'm assuming, the easiest thing in the world. So don't expect to like just steamroll every single game just to level up stuff. Though if you are that lazy, you probably can if you're a good player or a veteran Battlefield player. That's all I would just assume looking at it from the outside. On to actual soldiers themselves and how the game is going to work. So the game divides into its normal classes from what we can speculate. So we have support, engineer, assault, recon, as usual. Except that there's a slight change. So within each class there will be different specialists. Now these specialists are basically, think of almost Call of Duty, how they had Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4 and stuff like that went. But instead of having these super broken things, essentially they have one ability that they can use, which is their main gadget, and then they have their passive, which does something. One of the big ones I saw recently, and the one that most people I've heard have had any sort of about, is one in which your main gadget is basically a MAV, or essentially a little drone that you can throw around, drive around, or should I say fly around, that just flies around, spots targets, and then you can have it hover in place to go and do something, to spot more targets. His other big thing is that targets that are sprinting near him are spotted on your minimap briefly. Now that seems kind of broken, and in some ways I think it could be, but it all depends on the way the meta shapes out. But that's just one of them. There's another one where I think it's engineer, where they make they end up making a turret, like a small little sentry turret, but the difference is that it gets stronger if you are nearby to it. So the closer you are to the turret, the more, I guess it might be, the faster it locks on, and maybe it shoots faster. Like we don't know. It just says it does increase the efficiency of it. So I'm assuming that'll be something like targeting speed, or how fast it cools down from overheating if it has an overheat mechanic, stuff like that. Now, the other huge thing, and the biggest thing I think of all of this, is how weapons are going to work. Weapons are no longer class locked, meaning that you can equip any weapon, any primary, secondary, on any class from any specialist. So essentially you can select your specialist, you select whatever primaries, secondaries you want, you get to make your own full-on setup. How this is going to be balancing wise, I don't know, but I am very much so happy about it, because it just gives more freedom to the people. Let me look back at anything I got notes wise. Otherwise, that's the main bit of stuff done, for at least for soldiers. Vehicles are changing a huge amount. So vehicles are no longer going to just be around the map. From assuming it might be, from what I can assume, it's going to be similar to Battlefield 5 system to an extent, so where there are vehicles around the map, but there are vehicles you can call in as well, because the whole one of the big things they said was that not all vehicles are going to be on the map. You will be able to deploy a vehicle from your, essentially you'll pull out like your little iPad thing that you have, like your personal one, and basically call down a vehicle. And from assuming it's going to be like Battlefield 1, or even like Star Wars Battlefront, if you guys have played that game, where you can essentially spawn in the item that you want, but your team can only have so many. So it's essentially, it's a more like on demand, but you only have so long you can do it, or you only have so many you can summon out. Now, for the maps, from what we have seen, maps are huge this time around. They're a lot bigger. Some were even one of the devs compared one of the maps to a PUBG map in terms of size. And for 128 versus 128, that makes sense. Like, Battlefield 4 maps already, like even this one I'm playing on, is roughly a decent chunk of a PUBG map, so something that's the full size of it for, double the player count makes sense. And there's a few other small things with vehicles and stuff like that. Nothing too important really from here. That's in terms of the big things. Now, the other huge soldier thing that I actually forgot to mention, on my notes I actually did forget to mention this, a big chunk of it. So when you're running around, from what we know, or from what we've confirmed, there's going to be at least scopes, grips, barrels, and ammo this time around. So instead of just having your, so it's most likely going to end up similarly to Gunsmith, where you can, simply put, you can just, you can make a gun to some extent. That's wholly different. The different thing with this game, however, is that from what they're saying, they have something called the Plus system, which, what I'm assuming the way it would work is when you're out of combat, you can essentially tilt your gun over like you can in Warface and stuff like that, and you can swap out scopes, barrels, grips, and your ammo type, which makes sense because that's stuff you can all do on the fly if you really want to in real life. I've heard that some other things are different though. If there are more attachments, you can't swap those out, but those 4 you can swap out, which I like and I dislike at the same time. This is like one of the more controversial ones to me, because on one hand, that's cool, like, that's good that you can do it, because it means that, even if you can't swap your weapon, you can change it to fit more situations. The main issue is that I feel like this could easily be abused on, like, the more versatile weapons in the game. It's like, let's say, I don't know, you have something like the M416 and BF4, and something like that, you can immediately equip it to act better in close range. And then immediately after that, let's say you're going into an open area, you can just swap it to be a DMR essentially. Which I don't think is awful, I just think it means that now versatile weapons become even more broken, because you no longer need to care about attachment setups. You can just, swap between what you need at any given time. So I don't know about that. I think it's definitely a good thing in some ways, because it gives you more versatility on the field. Bad things because it presents a huge balancing issue with the game. And that being how, when are some guns broken just because of the fact you can swap their attachments on the fly? So as for my opinion on all of this, straight up, I think this is huge. Vehicles, we do have some vehicles confirmed and some other vehicle stuff. Mostly just saying that there's more, like, that slots are more important now, and that even if you're in, like, a non-destroyer, a non-gunning part of it, that you're going to bring massive bonuses to the tank and stuff like that, simple stuff like that. But the overall improvements of the game seem, at least from what we know from there, won't know until we, actually get to play the game in the open beta, which will be happening. It's something alright, I'll give it that much. I'm not even sure how to really speak about this, but overall, I enjoy what I've heard and what I've seen. I won't know until I obviously play it. Like I said, my biggest concern is balancing-wise, but in terms of the actual content, I think this is going to be probably the greatest Battlefield we have had in a long time. Now, in terms of the other things, in terms of overall opinions for each point, I'll just go over them briefly for those that want to talk about it. Bigger player numbers and the player numbers for PS4 and stuff like that, perfectly fine. I feel like that's actually really good that they were able to keep at 64 players for PS4, and I still think all the new gen is fine, old gen seems pretty good. Map size really depends. It depends on how the gunplay and gameplay is. The only thing that I am worried about is close quarters not being very effective anymore, because of how open some of these maps might be. From some of the maps we have seen as well, there's a lot of cover, there's a lot of areas to dip and dodge into, and if they have anything that involves around being able to essentially create or disable cover at any given time, which, who knows, that's one of the few things I liked about Battlefield 5, was the whole being able to build cover system. If they can either do that, or they can make it to where, I don't know, you can somehow move cover in some way, or one of the specialists is able to make cover, that will be something huge. At least in terms of, like, gameplay. But that will allow a lot more versatility in weapons and stuff like that. Specialists. Once again, hard to balance, but I understand why they're doing it, and it actually makes a lot more sense, because now you can tie gadgets to certain characters, and it does something that even I've said Call of Duty should have kept, which is one of the best parts of the Black Ops 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 1 multiplayer, which is that your perks, or your main thing, your main first perk, the probably considered to be the most powerful perks, is a perk that changes what you look like. Meaning that if you know, like, if you are playing, you visually know what you're going up against. In this case, you don't exactly visually know, but people can, how to say, more easily deduce who you are and what gadget you have, as long as the game, as long as you take the time to it, which I think can be a really good thing. Simply because of the fact that, well, it gives people more visually inclined information, and I think that that's just really, really interesting. In terms of any other opinions, overall, as long as they can properly balance this game, I think this game will work greatly. And who knows, maybe it might even outsell Call of Duty this year. With all that being said, though, that's really all I have. Just some information, my opinions. I'm hyped for this game. I hope this game comes out well. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys all later.